call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
UFC Fight Night Shanghai takes place this Saturday, bright and early at 6 a.m. And I'm going to give you guys my picks and breakdowns for each of the fights. If you're looking for a little bit more analysis, background on the fighters, just a little bit more info on them, check out my channel. I've got dedicated videos for each of the matchups. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Appreciate the comments, feedback I've been getting the last few weeks. And no further ado, let's get into it with the first prelim, which is Diyar Nurgozhay versus Uran Satybaldiev. I'm going to go with Uran Satybaldiev in this one. I was very impressed with him in his last fight. You know, he was undefeated, 9-0, took a short notice replacement fight. I think it was on a few days' notice against Martin Buday. Moving up in weight class. Moved up to heavyweight, had like a 40 to 50 pound weight disadvantage going into that fight, had a really good showing of himself. You could argue he won that fight, just landing the better strikes, landing a little bit more damage than Martin Buday. Had really good cardio as well, taking it on short notice. And you know, I compare that with Diyar Nurgozhay's last performance against Brandon Ribeiro. Just looked like he was having trouble getting past the reach of Uran, just couldn't really get anything going. Got dropped in the first round, I believe it was, so was just very unimpressed. It was a very underwhelming debut considering he was undefeated before that, had a highlight reel head kick knockout on Dana White's Contender Series going into that one. So I'm going to go with Uran Satybaldiev. He's going to have like a 5-inch reach advantage. I think he's the better overall striker. I think he throws with a little bit more intention on the feet. I think in terms of grappling, he may not be the better wrestler than Diyar, but I think he's got the better submission ability, coming off of a submission win, I believe it was, on the regional scene in one of his last few fights. And Diyar Nurgozhay just gave up the Kimura to Brandon Ribeiro, who's also very high level, who is a black belt, but Brandon Ribeiro just hasn't had the most success in the UFC. I think he's 2-3. I just think he's somebody that if you're a highly touted prospect, you should be, at least winning, let alone maybe finishing. But, both these guys have really good backgrounds. Satybaldiev, judo and sambo background. Nurgozhay's from a pancration background. They both have pretty good striking, but Diyar's just more of kind of a one-and-done guy, kind of wings his left hand, has a good left high kick, obviously, that he landed on the Contender Series. But I think Uran Satybaldiev, I think that he is just a little bit more well-rounded. He's more of more aggressive from a striking perspective. He's looking to hurt the guys, put extended combinations on them, throws straight punches, really utilizes the reach advantage that he has. And I just think he's more game. I think he's grittier, and he's got a good chin, and I think he'll get this one done over Diyar Nurgozhay. Next up, Long Zhao versus Su Young-yu. This is a really close fight. I think this is a really good matchup between these two guys. Long Zhao coming in off of the road to the UFC. Tough guy, takes a punch well, seen him get rocked and recover really, really good. Pushes a really high pace, able to grapple, work in the clinch. He had a fight with Cheng Ho Lee, I think it was. It was just very gritty, back and forth, and those guys were pushing a really high pace, not really slowing down. Really good takedown defense, which he's going to need to utilize in this one against Su Young-yu, who is a really good wrestler, jiu-jitsu black belt. I think he's going to, keep it on the feet as long as he needs to, and he's going to be looking to shoot takedowns and hunt for submissions against Long Zhao. But I'm going to go with Long Zhao in this one. He's got almost double the fights of Su Young-yu, 2 years younger. I think he's got more finishing potential. Su Young-yu is kind of a decision machine. I think he's got like 4 or 5 decisions in his last, 4 or 5 wins. I think Long Zhao is the better striker. I just trust his ability to kind of keep it standing, make it a little gritty, push a higher pace, land more damage against Su Young-yu, who I think is going to be looking more to either hunt for the submission or look to get it on the ground and control to win rounds. So I'm going to go with Long Zhao in this one. I think he'll be the bigger guy as well. I think he's going to have like a 6-inch reach advantage as well, home field advantage. So I'm going to go with Long Zhao in this one. I think he's going to do enough to win rounds and get the decision. Moving on to Yizha versus Westin Wilson. This is a mismatch. I think the odds are absolutely crazy. I think Yizha's like a minus 1,500 favorite. Westin Wilson, fighting for his job, 36 years old, hasn't had the most success in the UFC. He is really well-rounded. I just think he's kind of fragile at times. Can be hurt, can be taken down, can be kind of bullied. And Yizha, you know, he's very well-rounded, really good submission skills. He's very good at what Westin Wilson is going to be looking to do, which is get it to the ground and hunt for submissions. He does come from I think a taekwondo or a karate background, but, you know, kind of has a similar stance to Stephen Thompson, just not nearly as effective as it. Doesn't really threaten with his strikes all too much. I just think Yizha, younger, you know, 30 fights on his record, only 28 years old, not even in his prime. Very skilled striker, comes from a Sanda martial art background, really good leg kicks, very technical. He can be taken down, but I just don't see Westin Wilson getting to the ground. Westin Wilson does come from a wrestling background, but you know, Yizha, he's very good. He's got a lot of submission ability off of his back, and a lot of experience for the age that he's at compared to Westin Wilson, who, you know, 17-9, not the best record. So I'm gonna go with Yizha to get this one done. You know, Westin Wilson, he is a jiu-jitsu brown belt. Does have submission ability with his, you know, his long frame and his kind of the lanky frame that he has in wrapping up submissions. But I'm gonna go with Yizha. Gonna have the home field advantage, a lot more momentum, a lot more potential. Gonna be making, you know, the drastic improvements at 28 years old. So gonna go with Yizha to get this one done. Not sure how he gets it done. I mean, I think he can finish Westin Wilson, maybe tag him on the feet. But I do think he gets the win in this fight. Moving on to Michel Pereira versus Kyle Daukaus. So Michel Pereira, what an absolute letdown in the last fight that he had against Abus Magomedov. There was talk, I mean, I was wondering, did he throw the fight? Did the guy bet against himself? That's how bad he looked. Couldn't get anything going. Wasn't putting any volume out there. Was afraid to engage. Kind of makes you wonder if he wasn't betting against himself. Was he injured? Was he sick? It was just not a typical Michel Pereira fight. And he was originally supposed to be taking on Marco Tulio. So it's almost like the UFC was wanting to punish him, because I feel like Tulio would have ran through him like a buzzsaw. But Tulio had to pull out, so they're bringing in Kyle Daukaus, who got knocked out twice in the UFC. I think it was Eric Anders. And then, Roman Dolidze, Eric Anders, got sent back to the regional scene, got 4 wins against, I mean, honestly, not the best competition. 7-7, 8-4, 17-8, 5-1, like not terrible. And he went to what is this? CFFC? Is that Cage Fury? Yeah, Cage Fury, which is a good promotion, but got 4 wins. Got a win back in June, and now he's coming in on short notice to take on Michel Pereira. And you know, given Pereira's last performance, I wouldn't be shocked if Kyle Daukaus came in, put a pace on him. Taller guy, fighting behind his reach, fighting behind his jab, but I just don't see that happen. I think Kyle Daukaus is just a little too chinny as of late. You know, he was getting beat up and dropped by Eric Anders, got really beat up by Roman Dolidze, got his orbital bone broken in that Dolidze fight. You know, he is a good striker, rangy, moves well, good kicks, you know, has a lot of good submissions, lanky with his frame, allows him to get, you know, his Darce chokes and everything going. But I just think Michel Pereira is going to be too athletic for him, too powerful, too explosive. I don't think he's going to really be able to push a high pace on Pereira and make him gas the way that he did against Anthony Hernandez, just because Pereira is going to have such consequences coming back at him if he does step into range or look to get takedowns. He's also a jiu-jitsu black belt as well, so he is effective off of his back. He's got good takedown defense. I think he's got more power, more finishing ability, and was preparing a full camp for this one. So I'm going to go with Michel Pereira. I think he can get the finish over Kyle Daukaus by KO. Moving on to Rongzhu versus Austin Hubbard. This is another one of those fights that I think is really close. The odds don't have it that way. I think Austin Hubbard's a live dog. I think on any given night, you know, Austin Hubbard can give anybody a hard night's out. He's very good everywhere. I would say he's good everywhere. He's very tough, but there's just nothing that I could put my finger on that say that he does exceptionally well. Coming off of 2 split decision losses, I think it was to Alexander Hernandez and Marco Medeiros, that you could argue he won those fights. He made some kind of low IQ decisions in that fight, in those fights that, you know, probably caused him to lose the decision. So I'm gonna go with Rongzhu just because he's young, he's got tons of experience. He's looked really good so far in his career. That fight against Chris Padilla didn't go his way, where his eye kind of swelled shut, which is unfortunate, but he looked really good in his last fight against Cody Steele, keeping it on the feet. Really good chin. Getting into an absolute firefight with Cody Steele is very exciting. I think he got fight of the night, but showed off his chin, showed off his ability to really beat up Cody Steele and kind of put a stamp on that fight as the winner. And I think that's my big thing about Rongzhu is, his fights are, pretty clear that he's the winner, unless obviously he's getting finished. Got finished by Ignacio Bahamondes, which is not a bad look because Bahamondes is really good. But, you usually when he goes into a fight, you can tell that he's the one who won, whereas Austin Hubbard, he's kind of squeaking through these fights. Split decisions, just not doing enough, in my opinion. And I just think Rongzhu, he's got really good defense, really good striker, really good timing on his counters. Just crispy strikes, a lot of power, good feints, good footwork. His Achilles heel is the grappling and the submissions, but he was showing a really good job of being able to keep it on the feet in his last fight against Cody Steele, who's like a world champion jiu-jitsu guy. But I think he'll be able to deal with the pressure of Austin Hubbard, who throws a lot of kicks, looks to shoot takedowns, mixed up with his striking. He comes from a wrestling background as well, but I just don't think he'll have the submission ability to get a submission over Rongzhu or to get him on the ground and keep him there. So I'm going to go with Rongzhu in this one. I think he can do enough on the feet, keep it standing to win a decision over Austin Hubbard, but would not be surprised if Austin Hubbard won this one just because he's super tough, hard to get out of there, can push a high pace, very gritty dude. But I'm going to go with Rongzhu to get this one done. Next fight, Lanier Kavanagh versus Charles Johnson. So Lanier Kavanagh, undefeated, 9-0. This is a big step up in competition for him against Charles Johnson, who's got tons of UFC experience. Another one of those guys that's a hard night out for everybody. Was on a 4-fight winning streak, including Joshua Van, before he lost to Ramazan Tamirov back in March. Lanier Kavanagh, K1 kickboxing champion. A lot of finishing potential on the feet. Coming off of 2 wins over Felipe Dos Santos and Jose Ochoa, who I'm very high on. So I'm going to go with Lanier Kavanagh. I think that he's going to be able to keep it on the feet, and I think that he's the better pure striker than Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson can mix it up very well. He's very gritty. Comes from a wrestling background and like a cross-country running background, so he's always got really good cardio. He's fought a lot of really good guys. I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to edge this out via decision against Lanier Kavanagh, but I think Lanier Kavanagh will be able to keep it on the feet. He was showing some good takedowns against Felipe Dos Santos, so he's no slouch in terms of the wrestling department. Very smooth striker, good kicks, been training like Taekwondo since he was 8, obviously a black belt, so very defensively sound. I don't think he's going to get clipped or hurt by Charles Johnson on the feet. I think his hip strength and his just overall athleticism, being the smaller, more compact guy, I think he'll be able to defend any of the takedowns that come his way from Charles Johnson. I think Charles Johnson could push a high pace and leverage his cardio against Lanier Kavanagh. Lanier kind of likes to fight at his own pace and manage his distance and really kind of dictate how the fight progresses, and I think Charles Johnson can make it gritty and turn it into a kind of a brawl against Lanier Kavanagh and have success. But I'm gonna go with Lanier Kavanagh to do enough on the feet to get a decision win in this one. Moving on to Maheshate Hayisaer versus Gage Young. So Gage Young, he took on, was it Killing Saul Killed on the Dana White's Contender Series, had a good showing of himself, was kind of getting out wrestled by the bigger guy, and Saul Killed, who's looked really good in the UFC, so no shame in that loss. Then took a short notice replacement fight against Evan Elder, who's also very good. I'm very high on Evan Elder, and they had a really good fight, really entertaining fight. So I think that he's got a lot of potential. He's still really young, 25 years old. Comes from a wrestling background, heavy hands, kind of reminds me of a Justin Gaethje type, really good wrestler, compact. A lot of potential. And Maheshate Hayisaer, again, another guy, very young, 25. He's big for the division at 6 foot, fights well on the back foot, pulling people into his punches and into his counters. He had that really nasty knockout, I think it was, over Steve Garcia, knocked him down and then pulled him into another counter and got the KO. And we all know how good Steve Garcia is now. So really good straight punches, nice head kicks, circles really well, fights behind his jab, looking to counter. Doesn't have the best takedown defense, though. I think Rafa Garcia got him down like 6 times. So I'm going to go with Gage Young in this one. I think that he can mix it up a little bit better. I think he's got consequences coming your way if it does stay on the feet. I think he'll be able to kind of manage the offense coming his way from Hayisaer, mix in his grappling, and get this one done. I think he's going to have more power. He's going to be the more powerful striker. I think he has the better chin, better defense. He's shown a lot of promise against top-tier competition in the small amount of time that he's been in the octagon. I think he'll have success fighting for range, finding his openings, pressuring Maheshate against the cage, making him grapple, making him work in the clinch, just mixing it up a little bit better. I think he'll be the one throwing first against Maheshate, who's going to be looking to counter. And I think he'll be going, first and third, having success on the feet, and eventually getting his takedowns as well, because I think his wrestling is underrated. The guys that he's been fighting as of late, they've been really good wrestlers, kind of big guys for the division. So haven't really seen much success, but we have seen a little bit of it, and I think that he'll definitely be looking to utilize that against Maheshate Hayisaer, who's definitely looking to keep it on the feet and not get it to the ground, or that's kind of his Achilles heel. So I'm gonna go with Gage Young to get this one done. Not sure if he gets the finish, but definitely think he gets the win in this one. Kiefer Crosbie takes on Taiyilake Nueraji, I think is how you say his name. Kiefer Crosbie is supposed to be fighting Kenan Song. Kenan Song had to pull out, so now Taiyilake Nueraji is stepping in on short notice to take this fight. And I was watching Nueraji. I was watching some of his earlier fights, kind of like middle way through his pro career, and I was like, this guy's okay on the feet. He's desperately shooting for takedowns against Ki Wong, I think it was. And then just like a year later, his next fight, and then a year after that, his next fight, he was just making drastic improvements, and he just looked very confident, very polished. And the fact that he was looking that much better a year, 2 years, after that first fight that I watched, and that he's only 24 years old. He's got a lot of momentum going into this one. He's been out for a year, so he's going to be looking even better coming into this one. Lot of finishing potential. Can finish you with the strikes. He's got an armbar win as of late. Got TKO'd back in the day by liver kick against a guy who's had 35 fights. He was 20 years old fighting this guy, and that's his only loss. So I'm going to go with Nueraji. One of the things I can say about him is he doesn't move his head very well. He can be hit. You've seen that in a lot of his fights, that he has taken one to give one, which isn't the best for career longevity, or if you come across a guy who's really going to crack you. And I mean, Kiefer Crosbie's got good boxing, good leg kicks, good boxing. Hands are always where they need to be. Good 1-2. I just don't know if he's got the skills at this point in his career at 35. 35 years old, going to be at a reach disadvantage, 6-inch reach disadvantage, taking on a new opponent. I feel like Kiefer Crosbie, to negate that reach advantage, he's going to have to try and get close, get in the chest of Nueraji. And Nueraji's just really good everywhere. He's really good in the clinch with his elbows, with his knees. Great kicks, has a huge variety of kicks that he throws. Does a good job of utilizing his reach, pulling his opponents into counters while he's in the pocket, and just throws with bad intentions, puts a lot of volume out there, has really good cardio. But like I said, the only concern I do have is him in the pocket, looking, thinking he can take one to give one, not really moving his head and maybe getting clipped. But I just don't think Kiefer Crosbie is the guy that's going to be able to clip him. So younger guy, tons of potential, tons of finishing potential, huge reach advantage. Crosbie, kind of a 50-50 guy. He's been submitted 6 times as well, so he can be finished kind of at the tail end of his career. So I'm going to go with Nueraji to get this one done. I think he can get the finish over Kiefer Crosbie on short notice. Sumudaerji takes on Kevin Borjas. This is another one of those fights where I think it's a dead even fight. Sumudaerji, very big for the weight class, tall, rangy, southpaw fighter, great kicks, slips punch as well. Just very slick on the feet, mixing up his attacks, mixing up his targets, has really good counters, good defense, good chin, and really good cardio. Another one of those guys where it just seems like the same thing, where these guys are really good on the feet, but if you get him to the ground, that's where you can really have a lot of success. And Sumudaerji, 6 of his 7 losses are by submission. Doesn't have the best takedown defense at 67%, but he was showing really good takedown defense in his last 2 fights. He lost to Charles Johnson, where he was having a really good job of staying safe in the scrambles, keeping it on the feet, and then Mitch Raposo was getting takedown. He was defending some of the takedowns, but then when he would get taken down, he was doing a good job of bouncing right back up. So good to see those improvements, because Sumudaerji, I feel like you have to grapple him to be able to beat him. I feel like he's too slick, he's too good on the ground in a pure striking fight to get beat there. And Kevin Borjas, also a very talented striker, looked very good in this last fight against what was his name, the dude from Mexico, Ronaldo Rodriguez. Dropped him several times, looked really good in that fight. I just don't think Kevin Borjas I don't know if he's a better striker than Sumudaerji, and I don't think he has the ability to get it to the ground and grapple Sumudaerji to get the win. Sumudaerji is going to be the bigger guy. I think he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage, be 3 inches taller. I think he's tougher. I think he's got the better chin. I think he'll be able to handle Kevin Borjas, his crispy 1-2, his leg kicks. He'll be able to push 3 hard rounds, whereas Kevin Borjas, he had that really good first round against Joshua Van, but you can see him start to slow down, be able to get pushed back. He throws with a lot of power, which tends to cause him to gas at times and slow down. So I see Sumudaerji taking the center of the octagon, pushing the pace, making Borjas kind of fight on the back foot, which is going to hurt him even more in terms of his gas tank, keeping his range with his kicks, sticking him with combos, and just kind of edging it out on the feet en route to a decision victory. Sergei Pavlovich takes on Waldo Cortes-Acosta. And this is a good heavyweight fight, and it's about time that Waldo Cortes-Acosta took on a legit opponent. I feel like he's had kind of an easy path in the UFC. You can argue he lost that last fight to Spivak. I think he did, and not just because I picked Spivak. I thought that he lost that fight, but going to a decision with Andrei Arlovsky, his only wins are over, or his only finishes over Ryan Spann moving up in weight, Lucas Bursky, everybody's beating those guys, usually finishing them. So not very impressed with him. He's athletic, heavy leg kicks, hits hard, good jab. Kind of a one and done fighter. You don't really see him, extending his combinations too much. Has really good gas tank though. He can push 3 hard rounds, but just nothing special about him. Jiu-jitsu blue belt, 66% takedown defense, so he can be taken down. We saw that in the Andre De Lima fight. So I'm gonna go with Pavlovich. I think he's the better pure striker. He's gonna have a 6-inch reach advantage, a power advantage, speed advantage. Has a really good jab. He was stinging Curtis Blades with that one. Will get into firefights, but usually he's pretty measured, patient in his approach, waits for openings, and then kind of unleashes the fury on guys. Comes from a Greco-Roman wrestling background as well. He was using that in his last fight against Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and I think that he can work that in against Waldo Cortes-Acosta, maybe beat him up in the clinch, make him think about the takedowns, open up the strikes up top, but I think Sergei Pavlovich gets this one done. I think he gets this done by KO over Cortes-Acosta. Brian Ortega takes on Aljamain Sterling. Brian Ortega has just been kind of camping in the rankings as of late. One win in the last 4 fights, I think, against Yair Rodriguez in a fight that he was 10-8'd in the first round, just getting kind of beat up, and then eventually started to take advantage of the lack of grappling and wrestling that Yair Rodriguez has. So was getting beat up by Diego Lopez at the beginning of their last fight. He had his moments in that fight, but definitely lost that. Taking on Aljamain Sterling, who, also a very good grappler. Matt Serra, Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He was a collegiate wrestling All-American, so very good grappler. I think he's going to be the bigger, stronger guy, and I think he gets this one done. I think he's going to be able to time his takedowns very well on Brian Ortega, kind of get the backpack position, ride his back, ride his legs, stay out of his guard, and not really let Brian Ortega get into any position to start implementing his triangle attacks or things like that from the open guard. I don't think he's going to leave his head on the outside and get guillotined by somebody like Brian Ortega. So I think he's going to be much stronger, take the back strategically, be very strategic with how he positions himself on the ground, and just kind of negate Brian Ortega's game. And I think he's going to be throwing heavy on the feet, not concerned about Brian Ortega shooting takedowns underneath him. In his last fight against Evloev, he lost that fight, but he had a very good showing against Evloev, who's a really good grappler. But he had to be concerned about Evloev timing takedowns underneath him, whereas with Brian Ortega, I don't think he's going to be shooting singles or double legs and getting Aljamain Sterling to the ground. So I think that'll help him and benefit him with his striking, where I think he's got probably the power advantage, but Brian Ortega does have decent boxing. He can get his timing going and have success, but I think Aljamain Sterling will be the better grappler in this one and do a lot of control, damage of ground and pound, and get a decision win in this one. On to the main event. Mingyang Zhang takes on Johnny Walker. Gonna go with Mingyang Zhang. Dude hasn't fought really the best competition in the UFC. He's got wins over Anthony Smith, Ozzy Diaz, Brendan Habero, Tuco Tokos, but he's shown a lot of promise, a lot of potential, still very young, 27 years old, taking on Johnny Walker, who can be pretty chinny. I think he's been KO'd 6 times. He was KO'd 4 times in one fight in 18 seconds back in the day on the regional scene. Coming off of 2 KO losses, hasn't been in the octagon in a long time. I think his last fight was June of 2024. So 14-month hiatus. He is very explosive. He's athletic. He's dangerous. He's very dynamic on the feet. Throws a lot of kicks, a lot of teep kicks. But I trust Mingyang Zhang's chin. in this one. I think this will be a firefight. Maybe Walker hurts him at some point, but I trust Mingyang Zhang's chin to be able to take what's coming his way from Walker, but I don't think Johnny Walker can take what's coming his way from Mingyang Zhang. So I think in just the madness of the exchanges, I trust Zhang to be able to bite down on his mouthpiece, and come out on top, land the better shots, get the knockout in this one. I just don't think Walker at this point in his career has the toughness and the chin to have what it takes to stand in the pocket and exchange with somebody like Mingyang Zhang, who he has been KO'd before, but he's looked really good as of late. Hasn't shown like any signs of his chin deteriorating. And Johnny Walker, he can be pushed back. He kind of walks straight back, keeps his chin in the air at times. And we saw a similar style to Mingyang Zhang and Ozdemir have a lot of success, obviously, and get the knockout over Walker. So I think Zhang's going to be the one walking forward, putting a lot of offense in his face, and getting him out of there. Also has the home field advantage, has a lot more momentum, younger guy. So I'm going to go with Mingyang Zhang to get this one done. I think he's got a definite prospect in the 205-pound division, and I think he's going to be a bad night out for Johnny Walker in the main event. So Zhang by KO within the distance. Appreciate you guys watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thanks again.